morning, and welcome to Coffee and, the longest-running panel discussion show in American radio. To make a comment or ask a question of the panel, call 401-766-1240 or email coffee@woonsockеtradio.com. And now, let's join the Coffee and panel.
Good morning to you, Coffee and, here on ON AM and FM. It's Thursday, June the 5th. 2025. Hi, I'm Joe Callahan, and we'll say good morning to our Coffee and panel today. There's Bob Lauder. Hi, Bob.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Good to have you here with us. And Sue Tester McKenzie is here. Hello, Sue.
Good morning.
Nice to have you here with us. And we brought up a subject yesterday, Bob, and they said, save it. We brought up yesterday, Coffee and they said, save it for Bob Lauder for tomorrow.
Another sports question?
No,
ready.
They know about that kind of thing. So, legalese. Now, I know it's Massachusetts, so do the best that you can, okay? A North Attleboro man convicted of a 2019 double murder when he was 19 years old will now be eligible for parole after serving 60 years in prison. All right? Daniel Randall is now 25 years old and was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole after a jury trial in 2023. The Supreme Judicial Court ruled last year that nobody can be sentenced to life in prison with no parole for crimes committed when they were under the age of 21. The question is, is that a law, or does the Supreme Judicial Court they obviously can do this, but shouldn't it be a law? Or have you seen this in other places where a Supreme Judicial Court just rules on sentencing like that?
The Supreme Judicial Court in any state, such as Rhode Island or Massachusetts, or the federal Supreme Court, has the right to interpret laws according to the Constitution of the United States. Mm-hmm. The Supreme Judicial Court in Massachusetts must have made a determination that the law that existed at the time that said that the 19-year-old could in fact be sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole was in some form unconstitutional, and that they have said you can't do that. You have to make your laws in conformance with the federal and the state constitutions. So yes, they can.
Okay, yeah. All right, and it doesn't.
Just as if you go back in time to things such as the Civil Rights era, Judge Earl Warren back in the 1950s, when the federal Supreme Court unanimously said you cannot have segregation in schools. Mm-hmm. Now, lots of states down in the South had laws that said you can have segregation. Federal Supreme Court said, no, this is unconstitutional. Those laws are not valid. So, yes.
Yeah. That was too easy. Like,
that
was just a
and Sue
boom, here's the answer.
Yeah. Sue had her research ready.
Research.
I mean, she had piles of books here on the floor.
My law library.
Yes, that's right.
But I did hear something in sports this morning. I listened to Lou Mandeville.
Okay, good.
You're surprised I do that. Because it's nice he has a great voice, and it's nice to hear his take on sports, even though I don't really understand it. But he had a nice phrase this morning that I hadn't heard before, and I really liked. And he was talking about a school day matinee for when a team was playing in the afternoon, I imagine.
Yes.
Never heard that before. That was really neat.
You never heard the expression before?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, the game was at 11, I believe, yesterday morning in Worcester. And it's it makes it really easy for the schools in that general area of Worcester and the surrounding towns to have a field trip at the end of the school year. Let's go to the ballpark. They used to do it down at McCoy, and for whatever reason down there, they used to always start them at noontime. And back then, there was no pitch clock, and so the games were dragging.
Yeah, that interferes with busing.
That's right. And so, the teachers are all looking at the time, and now it's 2 o'clock. Gotta go. But we're in the 6th inning. Doesn't matter.
Gotta go.
You gotta go. So the stands would empty out, and the kids never got to see the end of the game. It's a little better it starts an hour earlier. They may be able to see the end.
Okay, you just used another phrase that I don't know.
Filed out?
What is a pitch clock?
Well, that's exactly what it sounds like, Bob. There's a clock at the stadium. Pros have it too. There's a clock at the stadium. There's actually 3 of them, so where you can see, and the pitcher has a certain amount of time to throw the ball. It used to be they could stand on the mound forever.
They could do somersaults and
it was no big deal. Now, if you don't throw it within this certain amount of time, the ump calls timeout, and it's an automatic strike against the pitcher.
Oh wow! All right.
It works the other way too with the batter. If he's not in the batter's box ready to go by the same thing by the certain time. No, the ump has a clock in his mind on this one. If he's not ready to go by the clock gets down to like 8 seconds. If the batter's not ready to go, again they call timeout. They point to the batter. It's a pitch clock violation is what it's called. On the batter, automatic strike.
Oh, okay.
And I've seen batters strike out on an automatic strike.
Jeez.
That's when it first got implemented a couple of years ago. It'll be rare if it happens now.
Okay.
So that's what the pitch clock is.
Great.
So sometimes it gets into the TV shot. You'll see it. It's if you're looking at home plate, they're off to the sides. Mostly they're out of range of the camera. But if there's a fly ball hit to center field, you can see it out there. So
if I'm on this program for the next 900 years, I'm going to be an expert in sports just like you are.
Basketball's got a pitch clock. Well, they don't call it a shot clock in basketball. And football's they don't call it anything except the clock.
Okay.
So only hockey doesn't have a clock like this.
Well, it's such a slow game anyway.
It is. All right. Well, thanks for answering that question. And we said, well, the good deal is the man that was convicted of a double murder won't get out until he's 85. So I don't think it'll be too much of a problem then. So
you never know
if he makes it to 85.
Right.
60 years is a long time
right.
hanging out in prison there. And then we had the story, the person that was picked up in Milford, the teenager.
Yeah.
And he's being held in Burlington, Mass. That was one of the big things. Federal judge says he can't leave the state. And then it came up that said he could, we're thinking of transferring him down to the Wyatt Detention Center in Central Falls. And the family said, no, if we have our choice, we want him to stay in Burlington. And I asked Dave ahead of time. I said, just geographical, isn't Central Falls closer to Milford, Mass than Burlington is? And it is. As the crow flies. You think they'd want them a little closer to home. But I don't know what the family wants and like that. So
what type of prison is Burlington?
They're federal prisons. It's just like Wyatt. Okay. Wyatt's for federal prisoners, so that's what Burlington is as well. So, and he's still there.
I am very troubled by the way that ICE is picking up individuals throughout the country. I think that they're doing it, the lack of habeas corpus, the lack of the opportunity to go before a judge and see whether or not this is a justifiable reason for holding somebody in confinement.
Yep.
No.
Did you hear the reason why ICE picked up this 18-year-old?
I understand that they were trying to find his father,
yes.
And he was driving his dad's car,
yes.
And he was also an undocumented
yes.
individual, and therefore they
really don't want him, the one they have. They want his dad. They want his dad, and they're basically using him. They're holding him hostage.
They're using a 17-year-old kid. They're putting him into federal prison.
He's 18, Bob.
18. Okay.
He's
They're putting him in federal prison.
Yep.
With other prisoners who have probably had convictions.
Oh, sure.
I think this is going to be traumatic for the individual involved, and I think that the attitude of the ICE in taking people without having judicial process behind it is really an abhorrent behavior.
Okay. Sue, any thoughts on that?
I understand what you're saying, Bob. I also understand what many other people are saying, which is you came in illegally, you don't belong here. I think, however, they're somehow, and I don't know how, a case by case. I saw a post on Facebook the other day that was beautifully written, and it's a family that has been working, supporting, paying taxes, so on and so forth, and these people live in fear of being deported. It didn't state whether they were here illegally or not. The individual that posted has the thought process of get them out, they don't belong here.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, I think there are certain cases that need to be looked at, like this 18-year-old being put in a federal prison when you don't want him, you want his dad. This is a school-age student ready to graduate and everything.
Not yet. He's a junior.
At
From
18?
what I hear. Yes, I know. It's
That's odd. I thought they
heard
said
that.
he was ready to graduate.
I heard that yesterday that he's only a junior at Milford High.
And apparently he was doing well with school. That's one of the other
Had a
things
lot
I
of friends.
understood.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's a difficult. There's no black and white.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are some gray areas that could be addressed individually.
But I think it's
You-
the lack of due process on it. Let me use a different example. Suppose you were heavily intoxicated, you're driving down the highway, you get pulled over by the police, they say you're drunk driving.
Mm-hmm.
The evidence appears in the officer's eyes to substantiate you're being intoxicated. They take you to jail, and then they just leave you there. They don't bring you before a judge on any charges. They just hold you indefinitely until some other time in the future. I don't think this is right. I think that if you were in a drunk driving situation and you were pulled over, you'd be brought before a judge within a matter of hours or days to answer to a charge of drunk driving. The judge would make a determination whether or not you should be continued in confinement or would be released on bail or on bond. But you'd have an opportunity to be before the court and express your defense. And it
Well-
sounds in these cases as though they're not giving people that kind of immediate opportunity. They're keeping them in confinement and then deporting them without the chance of having judicial intervention. And I think that's wrong.
All right. Story from this morning. There is a court hearing scheduled for today in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, for the Milford High School student. Attorneys for Marcello Gomes da Silva are planning to argue for his immediate release from the detention center in Burlington, where he is being held. Family members released a video pleading for his immediate release, and a judge yesterday rejected a request by the government. I thought it was the family. The government wanted to move him to Wyatt, and the judge just said no on that one. So okay.
Well, you're talking about due process, and of course, Bob, with all due respect, you're a lawyer, so of course you're going to go to that route. But you didn't come here due process.
I've seen that a lot online
You
lately.
didn't come here due process.
Yeah, you didn't go through the due process to get in.
You didn't get here that way. And if you were charged with a crime, which I don't understand all of it, where the crimes here, there, wherever they are, if you have that offense already against you, you didn't come here the right way. So
But-
we're not. You got to get out the same way you came in.
I disagree. With the drunk driving situation, I didn't have due process before I
Yeah, but you
decided
can't
to sit down
compare
at the
them.
bar
You
and get
can't
myself
compare
completely.
That, though. I don't believe you can compare the drunk driving. I understand the comparison, but I don't agree with the comparison. It's because you have to look at the fact that you came here this way. Do I think they should be confirmed as being the criminals that they're claimed to be, or whatever the case is? Absolutely, whereas some of them are not. That's a different story. But if you have committed these crimes or this crime or that, you did that, you didn't come here the right way. So why should we spend more money with all the due process and whatnot? I just don't think it's fair to us.
No, he was brought here as a child, so it wasn't his decision.
Oh, no, I don't need
Right.
him.
Well, right.
That's why I'm telling you, case by case.
Right.
You
That's
know?
why I think the judge will probably have him released.
It should be case by case because they're
Yeah.
not all criminals. They're not all, you came here illegally. Now let's try to address that.
But if you follow Sue's ideas,
Yeah.
determining whether or not the individual came here, as Sue is thinking, voluntarily in violation of the law, or came here under the circumstances, such as being a child,
The child,
and brought
right.
to the country, you still have to have an opportunity to present that before a court and say, okay, these are my defenses to it. I think you can't just say, okay, we're going to waive any possibility of defenses for people that we have determined on our own without judicial intervention to be in violation of the law. Just as, and I defer back to the drunk driving, I deliberately got myself intoxicated. I drove down the highway at an erratic speed. I was lawfully arrested, but I still have the right to go to court and be charged with the action and have a right to have a defense. And I think that in in the cases of anyone who is a undocumented undocumented occupant of the country, they have that same right to a defense. And I don't like the idea that they're being held virtually incommunicado with.
For so long.
Yes.
I stand on case-by-case basis.
All right, break time here on Coffee and more coming your way. Comments and questions can be called in at 766-1240.
OM 1240.
Now at Verizon, we have some big news for your peace of mind. For all our customers, existing and new, we're locking in low prices for 3 years guaranteed on My Plan and My Home. That's future you peace of mind. And everyone can save on a brand new phone on My Plan when you trade in any phone from one of our top brands. That's new phone peace of mind. Because at Verizon, whether you're already a customer or you're just joining us, we got you. Visit Verizon today. Price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
If you need to hire, you know it takes time. Well, what if you could meet with qualified candidates the very next day? Now you can with Zip Intro from ZipRecruiter. You simply pick a time and it does all the work of finding and scheduling qualified candidates for you. Then you choose who you want to talk to and meet with great people on back-to-back video calls as soon as the next day.
Try Zip Intro for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. Zip Intro. Post jobs today. Talk to qualified candidates tomorrow.
The Coffee and Panel is enjoying coffee from Down East Coffee Roasters. All their coffee is roasted right here in Rhode Island. Down East Coffee Roasters is available at all Little General stores.
Whether you own a restaurant or an auto repair shop, you need as many customers as you can get. Every business does. Don't limit yourself to one newspaper. Get the power of 2 daily newspapers for the price of 1. The Blackstone Valley's Call and Times deliver customers from all over the valley with just one phone call. Phone 767-8500 for twice the effectiveness over twice the area. The Call and the Times.
ON Radio.
And it's ON Radio. Thanks for joining us. I'm Joe Callahan on the Coffee and Program with Bob Lauder and Sue Tester McKenzie. We just heard a message from the Blackstone Valley Call and Times, Sue, so I'm not going to have you go search something right now, but we'll do another message a little later on. Down in Pawtucket yesterday, the Curvin McCabe Elementary School in Pawtucket went on lockdown.
Really?
Police got calls that there was a man with a gun outside the school.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, police did respond to the school. And they took a review of surveillance video. Everybody's got cameras. And it did show a man leaving from a nearby driveway on a 3-wheeled motorcycle, like an ATV kind of thing. Police caught up to him, but they didn't find a gun. So I don't know. Maybe you look real quick. If you point your camera,
Right.
it may look like a gun to somebody. So anyway, the man had no direct involvement with the school, any students, any teachers, and the lockdown was lifted.
Well, do you know how?
What's that?
One thing that I had read, how motorcycles wave to each other.
Oh, yeah. Two fingers down.
Really?
What
never
can
seen
that
that?
look like from a
No.
distance?
Well, yeah.
Right?
When they pass each other.
Right.
Not going around each
They
other.
don't
They're
wave
going,
like this.
They're going in opposite directions.
Yeah.
Correct.
They'll put up the peace sign,
Yes.
but not up. They hold it down
Yep.
towards the ground.
I'll have to pay more attention.
And
I never noticed that.
they pass each other, though they will do that. But a lot of
But
times,
somebody seeing that,
Yeah.
maybe he had black gloves on, did that.
maybe.
And now it looks like a gun.
Maybe.
You don't
but
know.
you know what's funny about that, Sue? When they do that, it's really only if you're driving an American, like a Harley Davidson,
Oh,
or an
really?
Indian motorcycle, they'll do it to each other. If you're coming the other way and you're driving like a Kawasaki or Honda and you're on the Harley, no.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, there's
Well, I
real
knew that-
there's real division
I
in the
knew
motorcycle.
there was division because somebody said, like something. I was looking at one of those reels, which I love reels.
Yep.
And the guy, one's on the Kawasaki and the Harley's up ahead, so
Okay.
they didn't. They stayed back.
Yeah.
And he's staring at me. He's staring at me.
I have no idea what's going on, but okay. I do know the difference between a Harley and a Kawasaki.
Oh, well, good.
Well,
Well,
okay, go on.
Try
you
to
know, if you
try to watch for it next time, Bob.
Okay.
yeah.
When motorcycles are going
you
in
gotta
opposite
see
directions,
one
they
in
pass each
front
other.
of you and one coming the
yes.
other way. You'll be able to.
And they'll
see
do it because they'll go to the
Yeah.
to the side of the road,
Right.
to the middle of the road, so they can see each other's putting the.
And there's
the
a
things
caste
down.
system between driving a Kawasaki and a Harley.
Yeah, you should only be driving Harleys or Indian motorcycles in the United States because they were built here.
Right.
You know, I won't tell you. I'll tell you off the
Yeah, you
what
won't
they
get
call
into all of that.
the Hondas and the Kawasaki's.
All right.
But that also applies to Jeeps, but it doesn't apply to all Jeeps.
Does it? Okay.
Well, because there's one Jeep that's,
the Wrangler.
it's just this little thing.
Oh, okay.
It's not real.
The thing with
like you're not going to take your four-wheeling.
Oh, right.
So Jeep people wave to each other.
They also Jeep people also buy little rubber ducks.
Yep,
What?
and they put them in their dash.
Little rubber ducks, and they line them up on their dashboard.
Why?
I don't know. I don't have a Jeep.
I'll
But
have to ask my
sometimes-
friend.
And sometimes they go to get-togethers with other Jeeps.
Yeah.
And they trade ducks.
Okay, that's great.
And also what they do, people walk around with
Yeah.
ducks, and if they like how you've decorated your Jeep, they will leave you a duck. And that's how they leave it like on the tire, so you'll see it. Here's a gift for you. Put it on the hood or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah,
Right.
that's in the Jeep. What the
Yeah.
Jeep
Jeep-
people
the
do.
Jeep people.
Do
they
DeSoto
do that.
drivers still have this?
No, they don't have that at all. 766-1240. We got a call in, and here's the message. Bob, you'll have to agree or back us up on this on the call. According to the USA Constitution, due process applies to anyone in America, regardless of legal status. Does it say that in the Constitution?
I don't think it says that in those exact words, but that is the concept
up,
within
Sue.
the Constitution.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
it does.
Sue's gonna.
It's
do
the
a
right
little,
for habeas corpus. Yes,
But the part about regardless of legal status.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe they left that part out when they wrote it all those many years ago.
Right, right.
And maybe they said, oh, maybe we should put it in there. So, well, anyway.
No, I think the Constitution says every individual who is in this country is entitled to certain protections. It doesn't say whether or not you're a lawful
legal-
citizen.
Okay. What's it say, Sue?
It does say it. It does say that, Bob. That doesn't mean I agree with it. You know, I want to
Yeah.
still say case by case. The 5th and 14th Amendments to the Constitution guarantee due process. So my question is then why aren't they getting due process if it's in the Constitution?
I think it's because of the position of our present administration to be more active in trying to remove people from the country and
You said
having
that
that
so
override
eloquently.
the
Constitution,
precepts of
yeah.
the Constitution. Yes.
Okay.
You said that eloquently, Bob.
That's because
Oh, thank you.
he's a lawyer. Has
He's
to
a
speak in
classy
front of.
guy.
He's got to speak in front of judges.
Maybe wrong.
And
but,
look
you know.
good.
Th-
But it
thanks for the
sounds
ac-
but it
the
sounds
accolade.
it sounds good, right?
It sounded
Thank you.
very, very professional.
All right. The Rhode Island Department of Health is letting residents know there's a ground beef recall due to E. coli contamination.
Oh,
Possible E. coli. Yep. Yesterday, there was almost a nationwide recall of cucumbers
Right.
because of salmonella. And that now we get the ground beef here in Rhode Island. The organic rancher products were distributed to Whole Foods Market nationwide, and so far no illnesses have been reported. The beef has a use by or freeze by dates of January 19th and June 20th. Sorry, June 19th and June 20th. And anyone who purchased the meat should throw it away or return it to the place of purchase for a refund. So,
Wow.
and as I said yesterday, you never hear about Oreo cookies being recalled. You know,
Nope.
Thank
Never.
goodness.
There's never an issue.
No.
Never. That
you-
chocolate chip. You're safe eating those. You think you're eating healthy, going for the fruit and vegetables, and
Going
all
for
and all
organic,
of these
yeah,
things
true.
come out and said, sorry, they've been contaminated. Drives you crazy.
This justifies your breakfast. Oreo cookies, man. Yes.
There is an Oreo
and-
cookie cereal, you know.
There is?
Yes.
Oh.
Go look up and down the
There's
aisle.
also a chocolate chip one.
Yep.
Oh, my.
Little mini.
I saw one. There's chocolate frosted flakes now with Tony the Tiger. There's a chocolate milkshake and a strawberry milkshake. Frosted flakes. I'm like,
There's even
wow.
straws that are flavored straws.
Yes.
That the wool.
Chocolate and strawberry.
What are they?
vanilla.
Cereal straws or
Yeah.
whatever?
No, I want to save my good desserts for the end of the day to sort of, be a balm for the things that have happened during the day that weren't so wonderful and end off the day with good stuff. If I start the day with Oreos, I mean,
Yeah.
where
no.
can you go from there?
When I was a kid, lucky. I was very lucky because if I would go with my mother to the grocery store, I could pick out any cereal in the cereal aisle. She didn't care.
Well,
she
back
was
in
she was
the-
getting the Cheerios for herself. You know, well,
Right.
what are the
Yeah.
kids? What are the kids going to eat? All right. You know, it was the Apple Jacks and the Corn Pops and the Frosted Flakes and the Chocolate Rice Krispies. That was another one. So yeah, the Fruity Pebbles and the Cocoa
Yeah, but
Pebbles.
back then you just did that. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
my kids are 31 and 37, and I didn't. even then think like, oh, a lot of sugar. I mean, obviously if they were in a position they needed to lose weight, they wanted to play baseball, they wanted to do, then no.
Yeah.
But if both my kids were very thin.
I'm talking like 5th grade. kind of
Yeah,
thing,
I'm
elementary
talking
school. You can
all
eat
the
anything
way.
then.
All
Yeah.
the way. It didn't matter.
got gruel that my mother
Gruel,
would
that's
make
it? That's too
in the
bad.
big pot. In the,
All right, do you agree with this or not? A bill in Rhode Island House, a bill to allow cities and towns to tax parking garages and parking lots up to 7% is headed to the House. Channel 12 reported it was passed by the Senate yesterday, 31-5. Supporters said the bill is a way for Providence and other communities to diversify their tax base. A vote in the House has not yet been scheduled.
now, when you talk about 7%, are they talking about 7% of the revenue that they're getting from the parking? And if it's so, that sounds sort of like a sales tax on parking. But if you're talking 7% of what? The value of the building or the value of the lot? I think it's more likely on the revenue.
I think it's on the revenue, but it doesn't say. A
Okay.
bill to allow cities and towns to tax parking garages and parking lots up to 7% is headed to the House
Because they already pay
So-
taxes on the property.
on the property.
Right.
I made the assumption it'll be on people parking.
Right.
So
sort
if
of a
it's-
sales tax. Like
Yeah.
if I went into a store and I bought a particular item, and they always put on the sales tax at the end when they're cashing you out.
Yeah.
Okay, this would be the same sort of thing. It's a sales tax on the revenue from parking.
So
okay.
instead of
But they'll tax the property owner,
well, they'll tax.
and then the property owners will be reflecting the increased parking from $10 to $12. We'll
Right.
say.
yeah. So if I'm thinking of the Providence Place Mall, if you're there for the first couple of hours and it's $1, okay, now it's $1.25.
Which doesn't make sense to do that to the individual customer. You're increasing the rate
Yeah.
is one thing, but to say, okay, $10, and plus 7% tax doesn't make sense. Most people, have a 5, a 10, a 20.
Well,
whatever.
the parking garage is going to pass it on anyway.
Of course.
Yeah. And when there are events downtown, the other parking places, it was always like $25 to park. in
Right, and
some
those
places.
individual lots, it's cash.
Yeah, it is
you're,
cash.
You're just paying cash. That's what I'm saying. It'd be
Yeah.
kind of ridiculous to say, okay, that's going to be $12.22 with
Yeah,
the
right.
7% tax.
we were
Who's got a
at an
quarter?
event down
Right.
on Westminster Street in Providence a few months ago, and the parking was like $40 for a vehicle.
insane.
It was
Wow, is it
incredible.
that high?
Yeah.
Maybe it was because of the event you were seeing, or were there a few events in town?
There
at
were
the same
several
time?
going on at the same time.
That
but,
might be it.
Yeah, still.
When was it, Bob?
and- Say
Which
again?
Couple of
weekend?
months.
Oh,
Like-
about 4 or 5 weeks ago, there was a big show at PPAC,
Oh.
and then there was the event that we were going to down the street.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But the people that run the lots, they know they're going to get the money,
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
no matter what
Yeah.
what they're charging. Unless it's ridiculous, $1,000 a car. But they just know, okay, if Bob's arguing, oh, this is outrageous, I'm going to go park somewhere else. Okay, move along, Sue, you'll pay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They just know it's
Well,
going to
Sue
happen.
won't. Let's make that
Well,
clear.
the next car will
Well,
pay.
actually, the attendants were very courteous because you pulled up to the garage, and before you even got into it, the guy said, I got to tell you, it's $40 to park here. And
It's probably unusual. It's probably more than what it
Yeah.
usually
so
is.
you have the chance to, okay, I'll
Back
move
up.
on. And I did.
All right.
Which is good that they did that. I mean, that's...
I hate paying the same amount of value for the car as the parking.
I know. Something's wrong about that.
Yeah.
That's when younger, when I was going to concerts down there in Providence, and I noticed the cost of T-shirts of the band you were seeing was rising, and it was getting closer to the amount of the ticket price.
Right.
Whoa.
And then it passed. I said, when you're paying more for the shirt than the ticket to see the band, it's time to stop buying the shirts.
Yeah,
And
but the
so-
shirts are going to last for years, whereas the band, it's ephemeral. You're, 2 days later, you may
But
remember
it's
the
a
songs.
memory.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a
But
memory.
but the ticket prices have come back, by the way. So it's
Okay.
they're almost exactly the same, it seems, depending on what.
I
kind of
hate to
shirt
ask
you
what the
wanna buy.
ticket prices are.
Depends who you want to see.
Okay.
I can tell you. I mean, I told you I was gonna go see the Carl Reefers and the Doobie Brothers. Right now, if you want to sit out on the lawn, $30 a shot. Ticketmaster's having some deal. with certain shows. That's not bad. I'm going, and I'm not sitting up there. I'm sitting much closer. I'm paying over $200.
Yikes! Whoa! I gotta get a job
Actually,
on radio.
Actually, I haven't paid anything because my sister bought the tickets. maybe she'll forget.
Right?
No, maybe
Where
not.
can I? How can I introduce myself to his sister?
Right?
She's married. Anyway, Sue, it's time for a second
That's
message.
his Bob, but whatever.
it's time for a second message from the Blackstone Valley Call-in Times.
So, good morning, everybody. I just wanted to point out that I found out last week that there were some missing issues of the paper. In other words, never delivered. When I called my office, they said, we need to know these things. So if anybody out there, whether you're a retail store or an individual that usually gets your paper from a specific location, and it's not there because they say they didn't get it, you can call my cell phone to let me know, because the office needs to know. It's not so much that, okay, well, hurry up and get them there. It's more of a, why aren't you doing this? Because we
What
are
happened?
are paying a company for this. They should be delivering on time to all of these locations. So if anybody has a problem with that, please call my cell phone at 487-4136.
All right, Sue, thanks. It's time for the forecast, being brought to you by Unbound.org.
Increasing clouds and hot with a high near 92 degrees and a calm wind. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, overnight low of 66. Friday's weather, a 40% chance of a shower or thunderstorm, partial sunshine with a high of 85. Friday night, 30% chance of a shower or thunderstorm, overnight low of 62. Saturday, 60% chance of showers, mainly after 5 p.m. Mostly cloudy skies, high of 75. Sunday, partly sunny, high of 76. Monday, mostly sunny and 73. Tuesday, mostly cloudy, chance of showers, high of 75. And on Wednesday, partly sunny, 79 degrees.
Currently outside the Navigant Credit Union broadcast studio on the corner of Park Ave and Kennedy Street, sunny skies with 71 degrees. A girl in Kenya dreams of becoming a doctor, an elder in Guatemala dreams of being part of a community. Reach out and change their world, and it will change your own at unbound.org.
Inferno Audio offers its congratulations to the class of 2025 on your well-deserved success. The sky is the limit, grads. And remember, with technology from Inferno Audio, there's no need to buy a new vehicle. They can update the technology in older car screens and can pair your cell phone screen to your auto's screen for a safe, hands-free experience. Have the latest technology at your fingertips and help from the experts at Inferno Audio. Call 762-3433 or stop by 160 Clinton Street in Woonsocket to see if your car is eligible. Krakow Deli Bakery Smokehouse offers authentic homemade Polish food to make your next meal special. Try our many varieties of hot and fresh pierogies with onions and what they call dirty sour cream. Or pick up golubki, kielbasa, babkas, or some fresh rye bread. We also offer a large selection of specialty and imported foods. Open Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, 9 in the morning till 6 p.m., Wednesdays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturdays from 8 to 5 p.m. It's Krakow Deli Bakery Smokehouse. Follow us on Facebook and learn about our weekly specials. Located at 855 Social Street, Woonsocket, Krakow Deli Bakery Smokehouse has all the authentic Polish foods you love.
When you need a skilled attorney who will fight for your rights, look no further than Attorney Bob Lauder of Woonsocket. If your legal questions revolve around estates or trusts, then talk to Bob. If you're contemplating a divorce, then talk to Bob. Attorney Bob Lauder has a calming demeanor, which is very helpful in legal matters. And Bob has more than 40 years' experience practicing law. Call Attorney Bob Lauder today at 401-762-4550, 762-4550. The Supreme Court of Rhode Island licenses all attorneys in the general practice of law. The court does not license or certify any attorney as an expert or specialist in any field of practice.
ON Radio.
It's Coffee and an ON. Thanks for joining us. Joe Callan here with Sue Tester McKenzie and Bob Lauder. We just heard a commercial from Bob because I forgot to stop it. So, Bob, let's get another message from your law office, please.
Great. 2 commercials for the price of 1. Man, this is fantastic.
3 for 2, actually.
Good morning. This is Attorney Bob Lauder. Remember last week when my legal assistant Yulia suggested I talk about legal cases involving baseball as an opportunity to show my extensive knowledge of the sport? Well, this week, Yulia found out that today is National Moonshine Day.
All right.
And made a similar suggestion. Okay, how does moonshine come into Rhode Island judicial cases? Actually, there are a number of cases, but one of the more interesting ones is that of State versus Campbell. The case began when the police secured a search warrant to tap the phone line, remember back in the old days, all landlines then, of a character nicknamed Meatloaf. As a result of the wiretap, the police learned that another individual was intending to secure PCP, that is, phencyclidine, can't pronounce it, a frequently designated controlled substance, from a chemist. The chemist subsequently became the defendant, Campbell, and to take the PCP to North Carolina, where he would trade it for moonshine. The police filed an affidavit to secure a search warrant to wiretap the lines of the chemical company where the defendant was employed. And based on the substance of conversations on those lines, the police began a surveillance of the moonshine lover's home, the defendant's place of work, and the defendant was subsequently arrested. All of the wiretap conversations were recorded on an original and a simultaneous second copy. The defendant was subsequently convicted for possession of PCP, possession with intent to deliver, and conspiracy to possess with the intent to deliver. On appeal to the state Supreme Court, the defendant raised several issues concerning the validity of the search warrants, and also alleged that the tape recordings had not been sealed by the presiding justice of the Superior Court as provided in Section 12-5.1 of the General Laws. He further argued that Section 12-5.1 of the General Laws also provided grounds for the suppression of evidence derived from a wiretap if the seal provided was not substantiated, and there was not any present or substantive explanation as to its absence. The Supreme Court disagreed with the defendant. The court wrote that the purpose behind the sealing requirement is the preservation of the confidentiality of the government's investigation and the authenticity of the documents for the purpose of review. The court noted that the Federal Fifth Circuit of Review had held that technical noncompliance with provisions does not warrant the suppression of the procedures following the fulfillment of the purpose, and the defendant's claims had no prejudice as a result of the noncompliance, and the provision was not deliberately circumvented. While the Supreme Court ultimately determined the conviction of the defendant to be justified, no mention was made thereafter of the loss of the opportunity of the moonshine lover to actually trade the PCP for the sweet nectar of moonshine. Sounds like I've actually consumed moonshine in reading this. This is Attorney Bob Lauder. If you think my office may be assistance to you in legal matters, please call me for an appointment. My name is Bob Lauder, and my telephone number is 762-4550. And the disclaimer: the Supreme Court of Rhode Island licenses all attorneys in the general practice of law. The court does not license or certify any attorney as an expert or specialist in any field of practice. Thank you.
Bob,
All right, Bob.
Bob, the reason you're having difficulty is you went back to smaller text. I can see that.
She's right.
And no glasses.
And no, well, it's not here.
All right, the ACLU, Bob, is suing Brown University Police.
Mm-hmm.
All right. They're suing Brown University Police for not releasing arrest records to the public. The lawsuit was filed on behalf of two journalists who were denied arrest reports in unrelated incidents. The university argues the officers work for a private agency and therefore are not subject to the state's access to public records law. The ACLU said the university's police have the same authority as other law enforcement and should follow the same law. Any
They're
thoughts on
suing the police officers were hired and employed by Brown.
Officers
and they apparently
work for a private agency. Yep, so they were hired by Brown University.
And
to
they
be on the
made
campus.
an arrest of an individual, it sounds as though, and now the news media is trying to get copies of those arrest records.
Of the arrest records, yep.
I'd have to read the statute regarding public disclosure of records, because
Okay.
I don't know that.
Okay.
But,
Well, the ACLU believes that they should have been released.
all right. Now, if the security forces arrested somebody, they can't prosecute them in some kind of secret tribunal. They'd have to be going before
A
the regular court.
Okay.
And at the time of the regular court hearing,
Then it becomes public?
I would imagine that the documents would become public because the police would be relying upon the statements contained within the arrest records to prosecute the case.
Oh, okay.
If I just read
Right.
that something about government records, so if that's just within the school and the hired police, maybe they don't label it as government.
Well,
The arrest
that,
records?
That sounds like what Brown is doing right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
if
that's what I'm saying, what
Right.
they're doing, because it's the word government, and if those aren't listed as government records, then they may not need to release them. I'm
Well-
reading more, but that's the word that just
Right.
popped into head.
But if, for example, I was a student at Brown and I was arrested for being drunk in the common room of the dorm, then I would expect that I'd be prosecuted for drunken disorderly conduct, and that would go to the district court in Providence. And when you go to the district court in Providence, the evidence that is being used by the police department to file the complaint is going to be a public record.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, then the ACLU might just win this one.
I'd have to look at the law.
All right.
Yeah.
You know, things you don't want to have happen. This happened in Attleboro. And
Does things that we don't want to have happen include being here this morning, or is that?
no.
Oh, okay.
You hate when you hear this. You know, if an ambulance is out, you know, doing a run, and one in Attleboro was involved in an accident. It
Oh,
was involved in
jeez.
a crash. It's under investigation. It happened around, right yesterday afternoon, 1:10 at
Now,
Pleasant.
was the lawyer following the ambulance also injured?
It doesn't say. It happened around 1:10 p.m. at Pleasant and Emery Streets, which is very close to Sturdy Hospital, which is good because the 8-year-old girl that was being taken to Sturdy ended up going to Hasburn's Children's Hospital because I'm not sure why. The 8-year-old girl being taken from Sturdy. I'm sorry.
Right.
That's an important word. She was being taken from Sturdy to Children's Hospital Children's in Providence, and then the crash happened, but she was not hurt because of the crash. All right. The driver of the other vehicle sustained non-life-threatening injuries as well, so there's no determination just yet of who hit who on this thing.
Wow.
Jeez, imagine being in an ambulance. All right, I'm going to someplace. I should be safe, and the ambulance gets into an accident.
Well, I think
Wow.
a lot of times people are just kind of, like I work on the road and I see ambulances with the sirens going, with whatever, and,
People don't get out of the way.
right.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
try that in Worcester. Be in Worcester one day and have a rescue try to get around you.
I've been in Kelly Square when a rescue tries to go through there, and
Awful.
it is craziness.
And you, as a driver, don't know where to go.
Where do I go?
You stay where you are.
Yeah.
They have to figure it out because
You go around me.
you could be screwing it up if you do try
That's
to get
right.
to the right.
Yeah.
Just stay where you are.
I'm fortunate. I have not been in an ambulance as a patient, but when you are in an ambulance, you're sort of strapped down onto a gurney, aren't you?
Well, yeah.
Same like with seatbelts.
Which is why she wasn't hurt.
Okay, good.
But if it's a bad accident and the ambulance like rolls over, there's possibility for
Right.
more injuries right
You're
there.
locked in and
And strapped down.
strapped down.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So Bob's a big fan of Jimmy Buffett as well as I.
Yes.
I don't know where you stand on Jimmy Buffett, Sue. Yay, nay.
Yeah,
Kind of neutral.
no, I'm good.
No, good. Okay. Well, you would hope this wouldn't happen, but Jimmy Buffett's widow is suing the man who serves as co-trustee of the late singer's $275 million trust and wants him removed from the job. Maybe you could take over, Bob.
You're right. From what I saw in the news media, it seemed to be that she was complaining that he had not been giving her accountings
Information.
as to what
Right.
what is in the trust and how it was being managed and the distributions made from it. And usually, a trustee has an obligation to do that. All the trusts that we write in our office have clauses in them that say you have to make if you're a trustee, you have to make an accounting to the beneficiaries on a particular schedule basis. And if you fail to do that, then you're violating the terms of your fiduciary relationship as being the trustee.
Well, she's claiming, just kind of like what you said, she's been stonewalled, basically, by the man running the trust and his lawyer, and kept in the dark about the state of her finances. She also claims that Richard Mosenter has been dragging his feet, taking months to answer basic questions about the trust. She also says he told her the trust is only making $2 million in income an amount she finds shocking and not enough to cover her annual expenses. Wow.
Well, I
Got
would
a high
imagine
lifestyle,
that
though. And
the assets must be invested somewhere. Now,
well,
if
he's got all his restaurants and things like that. Yeah.
well, okay, if you're talking about the assets being something that's a substantial personal property,
Oh, okay.
then that makes sense. I was thinking more along the lines of the assets being liquid assets that were invested in other
Oh, okay.
other entities, stocks and bonds and things like that. If it's invested in things like that, determining the value is pretty easy, and I would think that a $2 million return on a $275 million estate, a trust rather, for over a year, that's like 0.5%. That's really, really small.
She also goes on to say that she's had to pay the trustee, the man, $1.7 million so far.
All right, that sounds like a fee that he's collecting from the trust.
Okay.
I wouldn't think that she'd be paying him directly.
Yeah, that's
Usually,
what I thought.
beneficiaries don't have to
They
pay the
don't?
trustee.
Okay.
The trustee takes
Pays it? Okay.
right.
A hearing on this whole mess is set for August, a couple of months away.
Okay.
So, all right.
And it's going to be a hard, being a trust of something like that, not just the amount of money, but like you mentioned, the businesses, the restaurants, to this. I mean, is it just, somebody owns it and you pay, what's that, residuals or whatever, to, type of thing? Or is it actually owned by the trust? That's
Yeah.
a lot of work. I mean,
Well, offer your services, Bob.
Thank you.
To Jane
Thank
down
you.
there in
I'm not licensed
Key
in
West?
Florida.
Oh, well,
Darn.
maybe she'll move up here. He used to hang out in, not licensed in Massachusetts either. He used to come to Newport. So
Okay.
maybe you can get a buy a mansion down there and you'd be all set.
Buy a
yeah, right.
mansion
It's
down
like
there.
I'm qualified. I used to drive a limo to bring people to concerts sitting in the parking lot, so I had a connection with Jimmy Buffett.
Well, there
Maybe
Hers
I'll
is
get the
better than
job.
mine.
Yeah.
I mean, she was
But I
sitting, she was in a stretch limousine.
Did your occupants ever give you like a flower delay to wear too?
Oh, absolutely,
To get you in the mood?
absolutely.
Oh, that's so cool.
I had good people.
Buffett fans
They-
are so much fun.
I had good people with.
And I've been and Bob has seen me in the parking lot at Great Woods, and there are the Mansfield police are patrolling in there
Oh,
too.
absolutely.
Usually you see them with flower blaze on too.
And they don't give you a hard time unless it's an open container.
They'll actually say it. Put that in a cup,
Yep.
and they
Yeah,
move
absolutely.
on, and they
Put
move
it-
on,
right,
and
they don't bother ya.
That's right. We'll put it in a cup, or we'll be okay. All right, Bob. It's time for a second message. Actually, a third message
Right.
from your law office, and then we'll take our final break.
Thank you. Good morning. This is Attorney Bob Lauder. The second moonshine case I'd like to discuss with you this morning had a far more tragic implications than the first. This is the case of State versus Brown, and it was decided during that memorable Prohibition-era year of 1929. The case began in February of 1928, when two Providence police officers went to a house to exercise a search warrant. The police officers were admitted by the defendant's wife. One of the officers went upstairs and found a jug of moonshine in the defendant's bedroom. Police officer came back downstairs, and both officers were sitting at a table with their backs to the stairs, writing out receipts for the confiscated liquor, when the defendant came down the stairs and shot both of the officers. One was seriously injured, and the other died as a result of his injuries. After the defendant was arrested, he answered a series of questions, and the questions and answers were reduced to writing and signed by the defendant. At the trial, the defendant contended that the alleged confession was not freely and voluntarily given, and was not an admission of guilt by him. Now, before the jury heard the statements, a hearing was held in the presence of the judge without the jury present, wherein 6 witnesses to the question and answer session were examined and cross-examined by the attorney for the defendant. The trial justice decided that it was proper to submit the issue to the jury itself, and the witnesses were recalled and examined once again, and this time in the presence of the jury. Inasmuch as the defense counsel at the time made no exception to the decision of the judge, the defendant's subsequent appeal on this issue was overruled. The defendant then raised the propriety of the search warrant itself. The warrant directed that a constable to make the search, but did not specify a police constable. The state law at the time said that all police officers shall have all common law and statutory powers as constables except the power to serve a civil process. The court found that a warrant commending the constables to search for the liquors was not a civil process, and the search made by the police officers was lawful. This is Attorney Bob Lauder. If you think my office may be assisting you in legal matters, please call me for an appointment. My phone number is 762-4550. And the disclaimer: the Supreme Court of Rhode Island licenses all attorneys in the general practice of law. The court does not license or certify any attorney as an expert or specialist in any field of practice. Thank you.
Is that still the case, Bob? Can you be a constable and not be a police officer?
Yes. We employ a constable who is not a police officer, but who is licensed by the state to make the service of summonses and complaints on all of our civil cases.
Are all police officers constables?
Well, according to the statute back in 1929, and I haven't looked at it more recently.
Didn't you write it? Didn't you write it?
Oh, Sue.
Right?
I need your assistance. He's ganging up on me. I'm not sure whether or not police officers are constables, but it says they cannot, at that time, they could not serve civil process, which would mean that where I hire a constable to go out and serve the summons and complaints, if the police officer is determined to be a constable, he could not go out and serve the summons and complaints.
The answer is no. Not
Okay.
all police officers in Rhode Island are also constables.
Okay. Because I always heard that's where the word cop came from.
Oh,
Constable on patrol.
I never knew that.
Really?
No. Okay.
That goes way back.
Wow.
Once again,
Have
we
you ever-
learned something new today.
Have you heard that
See?
expression, Sue?
Never.
Cop was constable on patrol? No? Oh, okay.
Do you realize
There
how
go.
bad these sessions would be if we didn't have Sue here to help us
I
out?
know.
If it's just you and me discussing sports, it would be downhill all the way.
Not for me.
Like that roller coaster you were talking about earlier.
That's right. All right, we're going to take a break here in Coffee and more coming up. Stay tuned.
ON 1240. Congratulations, grads, and wishes for a bright future from Navigant Credit Union. Navigant's committed to the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve, and they're proud to support students through scholarships and financial education programs. They also invest in the latest technologies and tools to make managing your finances a little easier. To open an account, call 233-4700 or find one of their conveniently located branches all over Rhode Island or online at navigantcu.org. Navigant Credit Union, where our customers are our owners are our customers. Navigant.
Progressive knows if you have to choose between everyday life and your boat, boat wins.
What are you gonna do? Take the boat out for a spin or go mail something? Boat wins! Are we cleaning the patio or taking the boat out fishing? Boat wins! Are we skipping that eye exam to go sailing? Boat wins!
Rescheduling eye exams can be a nightmare.
All right, fine. Eye exam, then boat.
With Progressive, you can bundle your boat with your home or auto and save with a discount and spend more time enjoying those savings on your boat. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states and situations.
It's time. Time for the pro to get everything for the entire job, all from one partner. To get access to over 3 million products, including many products you won't find in our stores. It's time to get delivery on your schedule or next day on over 50,000 products. And time to get dedicated support on the job site or in our stores. From ordering to planning, we've got you. One partner, any job, all in. Ask about all we can now do at the Pro Desk. The Home Depot Pro, it's about time.
ON Radio.
All right, it is Coffee and on ON Radio. Thanks for joining us. Joe Callahan here with Bob Lauder and Sue Tester McKenzie. All right, we talked about Jimmy Buffett a little earlier and his situation. Now, do you like the rock band Heart?
Yeah.
Ann and Nancy Wilson. Bob's never heard of them. Okay. Yeah, you have. Magic Man, Barracuda. No. Anyway, it's a sister act.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, they're offering a reward after reporting that 2 custom-made instruments have been stolen. Nancy Wilson's purple sparkle baritone Telecaster guitar and band member Paul Moak's 1966 Gibson EM50 mandolin were reportedly stolen from the Atlantic City Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. They were probably performing there.
Oh, wow.
I can't
All
believe the 2 instruments got stolen from them. Wilson said the instruments are more than just tools of our trade and call them extensions of our musical souls. You know, people like certain guitars and like that. She added that they're asking for the safe return, no questions asked. They just want them back. So,
Wow.
I don't know. You hear about people getting backstage all the time. I never could figure out how it's done. So,
I would think their security was kind of lax in allowing
Well,
that
yeah.
to occur.
It's much more difficult now, but back in the day,
Yeah.
let me tell you, the limos, I was right underneath the Civic Center.
all
At
right.
the time, there's an exit. That's where the car, they had me drive in. I was backstage with the band
Uh huh.
as the driver.
Yeah.
Of course, not for them. I had clients that were out, watching the show. But they were funny because this one group would book me all the time because they knew somehow, some way, I was backstage, or I was in the press box, or I was at Red Sox games, all that. So there were ways, but not anymore. It should be much tighter nowadays.
You would think so.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see now. Environmental officials don't think police in upstate New York had to kill a bear in Westchester County. It was spotted roaming the streets in West Harrison, New York. The Department of Environmental Conservation says the bear wasn't a threat and advised police not to take action until it possesses a threat to public safety. Police say they were forced to shoot the bear because they didn't have tranquilization or trapping resources on them. Authorities say they are now considering training officers in tranquilizing and trapping methods.
Okay.
That's too bad they had to shoot the bear.
The instruments were stolen before the show.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder if they had to borrow. They had to borrow then.
Right.
Another,
It was stolen before the show.
Go out to the nearest record shop. Maybe there's a guitar center down that way. We need something. We need it and quickly.
Well, they usually have backup, don't they? Backup equipment. I mean,
But
some
you always
pieces
see-
of instruments. Some.
Yeah. You always see band members changing guitars for certain songs.
Yeah.
And maybe okay, I get this guitar for this song, but for this particular song, I absolutely need the one that was stolen,
Yeah,
or
right.
a reasonable facsimile of. So
Well, I imagine they get very comfortable in playing a particular instrument, and there may be slightly difference in the tuning and in the way
Yes.
the strings feel on your fingers, and you get comfortable, and not having the
absolutely.
same one can throw you off in your performance.
I'm sure it does. The and I saw it at Autumn Fest, and band people are they're very kind to each other, and mostly what I saw was they're tuning up a guitar and they break a string. Is that I didn't bring it. Does anyone have an extra string? If there's another band there, yeah, here you go.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we
Okay.
need this. I haven't seen a drummer break any sticks yet, but mostly it's they break a string on their guitar, and it's like I need another one.
Wow.
So that's one of the things you got to carry around extras with. It's like Dave always has batteries with him because he never knows he's going to need something. Same
Yeah.
thing with the guitar players. You got to have extra string because you just never know when one's going to break. Same with a violin, I would guess too. All right, so hopefully they get their guitars back. All right.
There was
Well,
that article about looking for the guitar that was used in the Back to the Future movie
We talked
40
about that
years ago.
yesterday. Yeah. Did you hear about that story, Sue?
No.
They're doing a documentary on Back to the Future, it's now 40 years old, if you can believe that. And so they wanted to find the guitar that Michael J. Fox plays when he sings Johnny B. Good towards the end of the movie. Well, they went back to the producers and say, "Where'd you get it?" Well, when they filmed it, they went down to Ray's Music Exchange, somewhere in L.A., and rented it. And when they were done filming, they brought it back.
returned it, yeah.
Here you go. They didn't know it was going to be this monster hit, and 40 years later, we're going to need it. So now they know where they rented it from, so they went back there and they said, "Well, we don't have it. It was probably sold 40 years ago."
Right.
Right.
And do you have records back then? No. Someone has it that they probably purchased legally. So they're trying to get the word out around the country. If you have it, these people in California are looking for it. And they're putting out public. They think mostly you're going to hear it on the West Coast. But the stars from the movie, like Michael J. Fox and Leah Thompson and a few others, are putting out public service announcements. We're looking for the red kind of Telecaster guitar it is.
Right.
And if you have it, can we borrow it for the movie, for the documentary we're making? We'd like to see it again. So
Now, I imagine there's a number of those guitars. They wouldn't have just manufactured one individually and had that alone. There
But
must
maybe
be other.
this record store only had, or guitar store, music store only had one.
Right. But if I went in and
You could go back to the Gibson people. I think it's a Gibson guitar, and say, "Do you have one that something similar?" Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. No, that was 40 years ago. We've upgraded
But
it.
no, they want the real one.
I'm sure they do.
And it could be signed. It could be
Maybe.
I don't know how they do with certain things that are numbered or whatever.
Right. So if you have it, Bob.
oh, right.
Go check your attic.
Yeah, that's right.
No.
That'll do it for the show for today. We've run out of time. Thank you very much for listening. Bob Lauder, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me. Hope to be with you next week.
All right. And Sue Tesser McKenzie, thanks for coming in.
Have a good rest of the week.
All right. I'm Joe Callahan. Stay tuned for Gary Smith and the crew. Do you remember coming up after the 9 o'clock news here on ON Radio?
Broadcasting live and local daily from the Navigant Credit Union broadcast studio at the corner of Park Avenue and Kennedy Street. This is WOON Woonsocket Radio. And now, the news.